What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the AWS Summit in Los Angeles. My name is Aaron Hunter. I'm a principal developer advocate on the AWS Training Certification team, or the AWS Training Live team, with my good friend Greg, and we do a lot of live streaming on the AWS Training Live team together.
That's right. Great to be back with you here this afternoon, Aaron, and to those watching at home. We're going to dive into prompt engineering. This morning we talked about large language models, so if you didn't check that out, hopefully they can catch it on the replay.
Hopefully. And we are streaming over on twitch.tv/AWS OnAir. Make sure to fill out the survey if you get a chance. We'll make sure we have a link in there. So let us know how you've been doing all day. And then also make sure to follow us and hit the subscribe button. There's a little bell icon, isn't there?
Yep, should be.
Should be.
There's always a bell somewhere.
There's always a bell somewhere. Ding. All right, so this morning you mentioned that we had part one, which is about what is a large language model, and we kind of broke that down. We left off there with our prompt engineering conversation.
Yes.
And that follows the same concept of what we're doing with the series that we have, right? So if I can share my screen on the screen, share my screen on the screen.
That's right.
Then we can
screen.
We'll level set everyone here before we jump into that demo again. And it's all about learn generative AI for developers. Now that's the starting point that we want to take people to, correct?
Exactly. And for those that might be new to our conversation today, our series today is really a representation of a deeper stream that already happened called Deep Dive on Large Language Models. And Aaron and I pretty much covered the first two episodes here, with the second focus date being the prompt engineering. So, yeah.
Yeah, so deep dive into LLMs, or large language models, with AWS. That is right here. So earlier today, segment one, what are large language models and foundation models? We covered that. And then we have episode two, customize LLMs through prompt engineering, and we'll focus most of our content in this segment around that episode. But you can go ahead and check out the episode. We'll have a series landing page in the link in the chat, because there are two more episodes. They're about 90 minutes each. One is, or the third episode, is to customize LLMs through fine tuning.
Sure.
And then the fourth episode, Greg, this is your favorite one.
LLM responsible AI. Hugely important, especially when you have these LLMs hallucinating sometimes.
I mean, it's not even that. It's also, yes, they're hallucinating, but also it's the way that we're using the data to be able to train the large language models, and how we do that in a responsible and ethical way. Because there's like AWS AI responsibility. There's a whole thing about that. Did you know that?
Exactly.
There's an actual page around it. Yeah.
And maybe when we're talking about the prompt engineering, we can go into kind of some techniques to prevent that hallucination. And speaking of hallucination, I'm working on 4 hours of sleep and 2 cold brews, so hopefully I'm not up here hallucinating myself.
Are you an LLM? Is this Greg AI?
Yeah, the GEP LLM.
GEP. All right. Before we get started, let's go ahead and share the couple things within Skill Builder. We talked about it earlier today, but if you just type generative AI, then you're going to find a lot of options for you. But to narrow that down, focus your attention on the generative AI learning plan for developers. We'll have a link in the chat for you, and you can see that this is going to take you over to this learning plan that has a couple different courses. One course is the foundations of prompt engineering, but this only gets you so far. And with the deep dive into LLMs course that we have, that Greg talked about, this one here, and the second episode, this goes a little bit deeper into that course, or beyond what that course is covering you. So it's going to talk about prompt injections and prompt attacks and everything too, and how we can customize these LLMs through this prompt engineering technique. So let me pull up that site, because it starts with a few different prompt engineering guidelines.
That's right.
So this prompt engineering guideline, it's the introduction. But Greg, first off, what is a prompt, right? So if we pull that up, and then what is prompt engineering, and then I'm going to open these links in. But what is a prompt?
So a prompt is just really a way to say, putting in an input, typically a text input, to get a large language model to give you a desired output. But it's a little bit more complex than that, because
sounds like a kid.
Yeah, the way I like to say it is garbage in, garbage out. So there's a lot of nuances to the results you can get from an LLM, starting with, okay, which LLM do you use? But it's also, are your prompts any good in terms of what you're going to get back. So
Exactly.
it does require some testing.
And we'll do a real quick demo. We could even compare the different large language models and do a comparison between them and say, like, which one might work best for my use case, which one might work best for what I'm trying to accomplish, like who invented the airplane. So we can actually just go ahead and copy this whole thing and see what we get. So this is a very simple prompt, and I'm probably, without even pulling it up, how much you want to bet I'm going to have to refresh my session?
$20.
I will not bet you that, but I'm pretty confident that I will. I'm just going to go ahead and refresh the browser right now just to make sure. Okay, so earlier today in the first section, we talked about the examples of Amazon Bedrock and what the options were there. But let's jump straight over to the chat playground because we talked about comparing models and taking that one prompt from what is a prompt. So if we were just to say select a model, and I'm going to go ahead and pick Anthropic, and I'll say Haiku because we talked about earlier today that models have bias, so do humans. And my bias, I'm going to probably tilt more toward Haiku at this moment because it's really good. So user prompt, who invented the airplane? I don't need the user prompt here. I'm going to go ahead and run that, and we'll see what the output is.
See what we get.
Now, it's not specific.
That's right. Now,
Yeah.
one thing I wanted to piggyback on, I did some studying to prepare for this.
Did you?
The prompt that Aaron has enabled is called Zero Shot. So
What? Zero shot?
Yeah, so Zero Shot is a fancy way to say you enter a prompt, but you don't really give it any examples of the type of input that you're expecting. So it's really just, hey, ask it a question and let her rip type of thing.
Shot in the prompt, and you're too late. You're not going to get the prompt you want. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this and say, here's Claude 3 Haiku's response. The Wright brothers, Orville and Wilbur Wright. So it's pretty lengthy.
That's right.
But let's compare and see how different. So compare models. And I'm going to select a different model as well. And I'll go ahead and say Amazon Titan G1 Express just because I want to click that. I'm going to do the same prompt. Same thing. I'm going to get rid of that user prompt, and I'm going to run. Now, how different do you think these are going to be, Greg?
I don't know. That's interesting to say. It depends on how they were trained and how they were tuned and all kinds of stuff.
So right here, we can see that it's pretty similar to start off. The Wright brothers, Orville Wright, okay, and then we have a date here in the second sentence, but then we start getting more details that are more like in a bulleted list from Haiku. So it's very easy for us as humans to digest and read the information and really take away what we're trying to grasp here. It's also, I noticed an additional thing, the length, the brevity of the response.
Yeah, that's something I was going to say, not to put you on the spot here, Aaron, but...
Put me on the spot, Greg. Do it.
Hey, what better time than right now in the middle of this LA summit? But you mentioned that prompt response is kind of verbose. I wonder, could we manipulate the response and say, hey, could you summarize this in maybe in 100 words or less type of thing?
Okay, so I'm going to take that same response or the same prompt because we've compared the models. We know that Haiku is going to give us, at least when we have Claude 3 Haiku and Titan Text G1 Express compared against each other, that Claude 3 provides a bit more body, a bit more response, right? Yeah. So I'm going to
which you may or may not want depending on, a given use case.
Exactly. So we'll clear that out. We'll run it again. It should give a very similar response. It might be slightly different if you run it several times. You can test it on your own. But then I'm going to go ahead and say, summarize this. What is this going to say?
Summarize this in 100 words. No more than 100 words.
In no more than 100 words.
See what happens.
Not works. WORKDS.
There you go.
There you go. So we can
now I'm not going to count those.
I won't either.
I'm going to assume that looks good to me.
It looks pretty good. So now we have this like clear and concise. It's text summarization.
Right.
So if you have a large corpus or a large body of text, it's very similar because that's how you're training your large language models. And you can say, out of this whole book or out of this series of books, my family at home are currently reading a book that may or may not have a villain that starts with a letter V, and the hero may or may not have initials that start with HP.
Right, and we're in this playground environment now, which definitely is fun and sounds fun, but when you're developing applications, you have to take into consideration your customer is entering a prompt. Do they need a 700-word response on the end of that. So being able to prompt engineer and influence the type of prompt you get back is very important. That's not to mention the latency involved in some of the more lengthier prompts.
Exactly. So that who invented the airplane prompt, the prompt itself is really light. It's really low. There's only 4 words and a question mark. But what if we wanted to have a longer prompt? The following is a text from a restaurant review. Summarize the above restaurant review in 1 sentence. So text summarization. It's still not really engineering a prompt. It's not
Right.
diving deeper into trying to learn or trying to grow our skills. And I know from the training certification side, a lot of the learners tell me that they've been using Bedrock and even Amazon Q, which is also another generative AI service, to strengthen their skills, to learn faster, and to go a little bit deeper than what they were able to because there's a lot of information on the internet. So we go back over to Amazon Bedrock, and I'm going to clear out this chat here. Shall we learn an AWS service today?
Yes,
And
let's
hey,
do that.
everyone watching live, that was my first time asking Greg that question. He had no idea I was going to ask it.
Scary.
Which service is your favorite, Greg? Because we're actually going to take our own background, our own skills,
My
and
favorite?
we're going to validate the prompt response.
Well, I mean, I like them all, but if we have to pick one here now, let's pick Amazon S3, going old school.
Okay. What are we going to learn about Amazon S3 today, and how do we? And we're going to structure this prompt together to make sure that we're being specific, because sections of a prompt, the characteristics of a prompt. Let me see if I can find that page here. The question without context, open-ended text generation, mathematics. Give me a second. I have it here. Text classification, summarization. I lost it. I thought I had it open, but there are certain components of a prompt, and you have to be specific. You have to make sure that
Yes.
what you're asking is what you're intending to get, not just what is a prompt, not just what is Amazon S3, because that's going to give you the definition of it. But
Right.
what are we trying to learn?
Well, we could set some additional context for the LLM. We could say, I am a AWS Solutions Architect named.
Are we saying I or you? Because we're teaching, we're asking the model to be
Right.
the trainer,
It's going to
right?
be, yeah, it's going to be you.
You
yeah,
are
yeah.
an AWS technical trainer and are teaching a class of students about Amazon S3. So that is starting to tell the model that we want them to be a helpful technical trainer and we want to learn Amazon S3. But let's go a little bit deeper than this, because yes, it's still high level.
That's
But
right.
let's say we want to learn how to use Amazon S3, because you're a solutions architect. Maybe you're studying for an SA professional certification, and you're using Amazon S3 as your data store. And you want to use, I actually had a segment earlier today on twitch.tv/AWS OnAir, where we were talking about Amazon Q and AWS Glue,
Yeah.
and using that as the data source for their ETL job, right? So now use S3 as the data source for the for an ETL job using Amazon AWS Glue and Amazon Q. I just tried typing my own name at that moment.
Yeah. I'm actually impressed with this typing. It's very impressive to type with thousands of eyeballs looking.
You know, push to prod, bro. Push to prod.
That's right. Always.
All right, so here, certainly, now let's explore how you can use Amazon S3 as the data source for an ETL, extract, transform. It's even breaking down the definition of that acronym for us, so that's helpful, using AWS Glue. And, okay, so it is saying Amazon Athena. It's giving us additional context than even what
good.
we asked for, because Amazon Glue is going to be there for like your crawler and your jobs, but then Athena is there for what? It's so you can query.
Ad hoc analytics. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So like, what's the format? Now, this is another thing, because when we talked about it earlier, they said you have to be more specific with the format. What's your format type? What's the frequency? And that's all important parts of the prompt.
Exactly. What do you think about breaking into the some of those templates
Let's do
that
it.
we were looking at earlier? Because those are really like super detailed, probably more detailed than we can construct on the fly here now.
For sure. And this will really tell you, and what Greg is pointing at is that our prompts are getting stronger but there's moments for us to have an even stronger prompt. And these examples here, we're gonna Greg dissects them. Okay, that's actually a whole hashtag. Go watch it. AWS
That's
Power
right.
Hour. This whole thing.
That's a thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. But we're gonna Greg dissects one of these example prompts because they're pretty strong as they're written. We actually tried to re-engineer some of these prompts on our own. We couldn't get them to work earlier. So the way they're written here is exceptional. All right, which of these prompts that do you think we can do in the next 5 minutes? They fixed the clock down there. I can see we have 5 minutes
Good. That
left.
thing was strobing.
It was hallucinating.
Big time.
The clock said 15, 16, 15, 16, but we're good now.
Yeah. What do you think we kind of do the continuation this morning with the career coach?
You want to, okay, I mean, we're going down the whole line of thought of like, I want to learn stuff, but this time we're going to learn about career coach. We're going to open that in the playground. And do I just hit run?
Actually, let's look at it a little bit and kind of dissect it a little bit.
Okay, what is the prompt? What are we asking? What makes this prompt a strong prompt?
Yeah.
Okay. So this prompt over here, go ahead.
Yeah, so you notice we set some context when we're first kicking it off. It says, you will be acting as an AI career coach named Joe, gives a company name.
Hi, Joe.
Your goal is to give career advice to users. You'll be replying to users who are on the AI career coach site, and they will be confused if you break character Joe. So
if you don't respond in the character of Joe. So the prompt, when we saw it earlier, the response, the large language model, Claude 3 Haiku, was like, hey, I'm Joe.
Yeah, and I think, this next part, here's the conversational history. This feels like it's giving it kind of like that few shot type of examples of,
You say few shot? That's one of the techniques, yeah?
Yeah, it feels very analogous to
you
that.
You said zero shot, now you're saying few shot.
Yeah, not a flu shot.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
that's a different kind of shot.
I still get those.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, there's some user interaction. There's some interaction with Joe to give the LLM an example of a previous interaction. That's kind
And
of
Joe is haiku.
Exactly. That
Okay.
kind of sets the stage. And then it sets some important rules for the interactions. Always stay in the characters, Joe. If you're unsure how to respond, say, sorry, I didn't understand that. And earlier in the
And also saying to rephrase the question so that way the large language model can help.
Exactly. Now, you know what this really is doing under the hood? This is preventing the LLM from hallucinating.
So the LLM, we are telling the LLM to not hallucinate, but we're not saying not hallucinate. We're actually giving it a different direction.
Exactly. And this is probably less likely to make it hallucinate. And this kind of reminds me of Dr. Matt Wood's conversation earlier today. He compared it to Swiss cheese, where there are parts of an LLM where it can go deep, and then there's parts of shallowness where it's more likely to hallucinate. So if you enter in, higher quality prompts, aka prompt engineering, you can kind of minimize those kind of crazy responses.
So the user query is, I keep reading all these articles about how AI is going to change everything, and I want to shift my career to be an AI. However, I don't have any of the requisite skills. How do I shift over? Ready to run it?
Let's go. Let it rip.
We got the 2-minute warning earlier, so we have probably about a minute to break this down and say what makes this prompt strong. We broke that down. How supportive of a response is this from Joe to help the user?
Yeah, I'll let you kind of summarize it a little bit. I need my binoculars.
Right. So the response here is you raise a very common concern. Well, first, you have personality. So clears throat and speaks with a friendly, professional tone. Yeah, so you have some personality.
Now, that's some top quality AI there.
Yeah, right. And it's like, hello there. This is Joe, your AI career coach from Adstra Careers. I'm happy to help you navigate this. You raise a very common concern that I hear from many professionals looking to break into the AI field. Now, this is like a very popular AI field. This person, the user, wants to be able to jump into the AI field. And Joe is saying the first step is to do a thorough self-assessment. And also even says, here's what I recommend as part of your self-assessment. Think about your current skills, interests, and strengths, what aspects of AI most appeals to you, the programming, data analysis, or the problem solving. I actually, reading this just now, I realized there are actually multiple components to AI.
That's
AI roles. So there's programming. There are the builders of AI. There is the data analysis side of AI, the different role itself, and there's the problem solving side. And we are the consumers at this point because we're using it.
Exactly. You know what's really exciting about this? We're experimenting in Bedrock, but I'm thinking if I were a startup and I was in the career coaching space, I could literally launch a company off the top of this.
You could.
It's incredible.
Yeah, you really could. Now, we just barely scratched the surface. You talked about launching a company on top of all this. You could do it. You have these base models, and we're playing around with one of the base models here. You can have your own custom models. You can import your data. We talked about using Amazon S3 as a data source. You can do that with that custom model. Keep in mind, when you create that fine-tuning job, you are going to need to create some provision capacity, provision throughput with that custom model. But what I recommend each of you do is we'll make sure there's a link in the chat. Definitely go check out let me go to the top of the page, not the bottom. Definitely check out the deep dive into LLM series on Twitch and follow that link in the chat. Go to this page, watch the full episode, episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, and episode 4, where we're going to dive deep into what are large language models, how to customize them with prompt engineering, and also through fine tuning. And then we talk about a good conversation of using LLMs responsibly.
Exactly.
Great.
I cannot recommend that training highly enough. I talk about this stuff daily. Even I still learn some stuff. So definitely check that out.
Yep. Stay tuned for more from the AWS Summit at Los Angeles. Don't forget to do the survey in the chat. And thank you, everyone. Thank you to our chat moderators. Thank you to our production crew and our producers. And everyone, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Take care.